We've had some very important pieces come in. First thing is I've got an adapter here that will let me go into the fuel log with the flare line, okay, 5/16 of course. Here's my fuel log. We're going to the end, and then we got the 3 carb feed right there. Obviously, these are just tapered NPT fittings into the fuel log. And then what I did have as well, I decided to go this route with these fittings that go into the fuel bowls. I figured it'd be easier to have one fewer fitting because I would have had to get an adapter for the original. So especially when I'm just running a hose from the barb here and then obviously from this barb up here, all 3 of them, and we'll get that done. I am swapping out the crush washer for, I guess it'd be the nylon washer that comes in the kits, and we'll see how this works here. Little sealer I'm using, this is Aviation Permatex sealer. It's good for fuel. This is not your normal sealer that you get at O'Reilly, but check this stuff out here. You can see the part number there, 80019, and we're going to use this on the fittings on the threads. Just about ready here. We got our gasket, and I've got some good RTV here, JB Weld brand, and then nuts, a couple washers. That's because of the way these studs are made, and of course our high flow thermostat as well, if you saw that in my other video. I've installed these fittings ahead of time. That way I don't have to turn wrenches or try to hold down my fuel log. Obviously, this one here is going to be my flare line coming in, and I'll just put a wrench on this fitting here. We'll be fine. But much as I can do, I'm trying to get done here before I actually install the intake manifold. One of the reasons I run white lithium grease is so that the carb's not only easy to remove, but it keeps things pretty clean as well. One pro tip on installing an intake manifold into a Y block is always check the depth of the threads on your bolts. I go ahead and do that, especially for aftermarket intakes. It's very critical. You do not want to get into that chamber where the push rod is located and have threads do some damage. So you take a look here on this Offenhauser, you see how thick this part of the casting is here for the passenger side. It's real thin over here on the driver's side. So it's got to make sure things look good and that we're ready to go. Now I did go ahead and cap off the port there for the vacuum advance. We're going to tune these carburetors without that for the time being. And then I've also installed my port for crankcase ventilation. This one was an extra one somebody installed. I sealed that off. And then of course over here, I put in my 90-degree adapter, my 90-degree fitting for the heater hose. I highly recommend if you're into tinkering on Y blocks or really any kind of vehicle at all where you've got radiator hoses, heater hoses, use this Sil-glide. This is very good. It just doesn't seal up around your housing here for the thermostat housing and radiator hose and heater hose and stuff with your fittings, but it also makes removal a whole lot easier, and that's what's nice about this. I can slide stuff off and on here using what is essentially a lubricant, Sil-glide. Got a set of intake manifold gaskets here. These are Fel-Pro brand. Yes, that is correct, I believe. Normally I'm using Best Gasket. Not a problem here. This is going to be a temporary install just to get this thing set up and going. Not a problem. But two products I recommend. I like to use some type of a silicone around the coolant ports. I think that's helpful. Since I'm known to take intake manifolds off and on quite a bit, I also will use white lithium grease. With the white lithium grease, I'll probably get 3 or 4, yank it off, put it back on, intake manifolds, and I'll use the white lithium grease around here, not just as a precaution for the exhaust port there, and then also around these intake runners, and it works extremely well. So let's get this set up and get it in position. One more quick tip here on the gaskets. So a lot of people think they are symmetrical. They are not. As you can tell, as I put the two ports together, the holes do not line up. Look at the part number here, 9531. Excuse me, 9361. That part number there is 9361. The part number on this side is 9362. There is a right and a left, the passenger to driver's side, so make sure you get those right when you install here. Okay, we have our intake manifold ready. I've put some Sil-glide on that bypass hose. For the most part, what we're going to do is just kind of slide this into position, just like so. And there we go. Now once you get it on there, you may have to adjust it just a little bit just to get your holes to line up. You don't want to cinch anything down until you've got all your bolts started, that's for sure. Bolt in the back's a little bit hard to reach. Basically, we're just going in a crosshatch pattern as we torque it down side to side, corner to corner. So, kind of important to do that. You don't get any distortion. Okay, so we got the linkage installed, and I've got a double spring set up for the return off my bell crank. I've also got a spring set up for just to get the linkage to kick back. This stuff is a little sloppy here. I did modify my shaft from this clevis over here, and then obviously off my bell crank. So get ready to run some 5/16 tubing so I can get my fuel log set up. I've removed my fuel pressure gauge, and I've got a little poppet that I'm going to install, and that looks just like this right here. And of course I know that's kind of upside down for what we read, but it'll be just fine. So the deal with this poppet is what happens, it limits the PSI, and right now I think it's close to 5 or so. I know that may sound high, but I think we're going to be okay with the limitation of what I've got with the fuel log and getting fuel up here. I've got pretty good needles and seats in it. Of course, I've hooked up my heater hose. I've got my radiator hose hooked up, of course. A lot of times I think this just would have been a straight pipe, a straight fitting out of here. I just used what I have, my 90-degree. That's a problem. Then on the other side, I've got my coil hooked back up. I did plug off the vacuum port for the distributor vacuum advance, and then I do have the PCV port hooked up and ready to go. So we're not too far away. I know it looks like a Franken fuel line, but there's the filter, poppet. Also got the fuel pressure gauge. And then, of course, the fuel log, and I've got a little bracket here just to keep this thing from wobbling, all the lines. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and hook the battery back up and hit the electric fuel pump. I'll put the camera on the gauge and we'll see what happens here. Okay, I got the camera set up where we can see the gauge and all the lines, and we'll be able to see where it's leaking from if anything happens. So here we go. Just going to hit the electric fuel pump for just a few seconds, let it fill up here. All right, we don't have fuel pressure yet, so a little bit more in there. I can hear the fuel bowls filling up. And we got 3 pounds of pressure. Why should this make me nervous? It shouldn't. We're okay. I don't see any leaks right now from any of the lines. And no drips, no runs, no errors right now. I don't have the radiator filled up yet. I don't want to start it just yet. So it's getting late tonight. Probably take a crack at it again tomorrow evening. It's been real busy. But so far, so good. So now we have fuel going and everything. I'm just kind of feeling all along the bottom, all my connections. There's so many connections here. I don't think I can get away from it, having a 3 deuce intake, but I don't feel anything right now. So I think we're okay. Well, that started up pretty quick. Okay, one thing about it, the choke is wide open here on the center carb. And because I've got the difference between the Holley 94 variants and I wanted to use the larger bases, I had to put smaller bases, changes the whole makeup here. I'm going to put this at half choke, see what happens here. Everything's cold, of course. It'll probably be hard to keep running. So, anyway. Check everything out. Always have a fire extinguisher handy. Got one right there just in case. Okay, we're already into this here. I've pulled the fuel bowl and air horn from the front carburetor, obviously. Reason being, overnight, I guess I should say over 2 or 3 nights, this side here finally started to leak. And so that fuel bowl's completely empty. I'm gonna go ahead and back that out of there, probably both of those. Look and see if I can't find a couple better ones to replace them. That might work better. Also, over here on the side, I don't know if you can tell or not, just to explain what you're saying, if you go back a few videos in this series on the 3 Deuce buildup, I was trying to use Ford's 3 largest Holley 94s. And I've had to mix and match fuel bowls, bases, air horns. I had a center air horn. Well, this center air horn here, I've moved back to the rear carburetor and just flip these two because, I don't know if you can tell or not, there is no boss for this manual choke on the ECG6s. The reason I need that, I can't set an idle, can't have an idle set screw there because this would have had a different base for the ECG6 that's integrated into, or the idle set screw is integrated into that base on the ECG6. So big problem with just going with the smaller shafts, using these different bases and kind of the mix and match variety. I probably just should have went and just scrapped everything and just went with 3 small carburetors. That's my fault, live and learn. But I just didn't want to pay $220 some for just 3 shafts for those larger carburetors. But anyway, this was something I was going to keep forever on the car. That would be one thing, but since I'm not, just going to run this and get it going. That's why we've got this set up this way. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll be fine. But anyway, we got to tear into this a little bit to get this done. Thankfully, this comes off easily. By the way, good reason why you go ahead and underneath, you can tell right there, there's a head of a bolt underneath of that carb base there that goes up to your fuel bowl. That makes it easy to take these off. If there was an original screw that we had used, I'd take the whole thing off. And no sense in doing that. So here we go. All right, sometimes you got to be a little bit of a Sherlock Holmes here, but you can tell how the squirters there, you see how they're wet up top? That should not be the case. Gasoline should be squirting underneath of there. Those are basically your 2 nozzles that go in both throats. So we're going to disassemble this, take a look at it, see what's going on. Just want to make sure everything's right. You got 3 of these carburetors. I got mismatch of parts here and there. I just want to do my due diligence. Just to hold this up, you can see there on the left-hand side, we got some leaking going on. When I disassemble this, the power valve's fine. That's not an issue. But just looking at this thing, I want to disassemble it because I'm not too happy that the top of the squirters look wet. That should not be the case. What that tells me is maybe that the nozzles could be blocked for some reason. I don't know, but we're going to find out here. Definitely be a problem with running this thing if that's the case. Just to show you another reason why I use white lithium grease, gaskets just come right off. It's nice, carburetors. Okay, I believe we figured out what the problem was when I started taking apart the clamp that holds the nozzle down to this orifice here. One of these screws was loose as a goose. What that meant was, of course, this is supposed to seal. That way all your fuel comes up through that small orifice there in the center of the photo or center of the video and then squirts. You see there, those ones of the bumps. What was happening was fuel was bubbling up, getting past the seal, was on top of the nozzle, dripping down, was not shooting very well where it needed to shoot, down into two throats, the two bores. So here we go. We'll get this squared away lickety split.